Action! Hi, I'm Tom from Tom Migat Photography and welcome to this new episode dedicated to actions in Photoshop. I know some of you may say, Tom, come on. You started a series on watermarks, logo, signature. You said there were going to be 4 episodes. You released 2. We expect the 3rd one. And no, you drop us another tutorial that has nothing to do with that series. Can't you just follow through with your series? Yes, I can, and I will. As a matter of fact, in order to do the 3rd episode of that series, I need you guys to know what actions are in Photoshop, and that's what we're going to see today. So, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, so bear with me, all right? I'm going to try to be as simple as I can. So, actions, first of all, what are them? Well, actions are a fantastic feature in Photoshop that enables you to record tasks that you often do in Photoshop, whether they are tedious or that they are just repetitive, those tasks that you get to do all the time and you only wish you could just press a button and have Photoshop do them for you. Well, hopefully actions will sort that out for you. So, in order to create actions and deal with actions, you need to use the actions panel. So where is that actions panel? Well, if you don't see it, and I don't see it on my screen, I need to go to the window menu and click on actions. Now you see the actions panel, but if you do not see the actions panel yet, it's most likely that it's actually hidden behind the actions icon. Look, if I click on the word actions and I drag it on the bar next to it, now you see the icon. This is the actions icon. If I click on it, zoom, you've got the actions panel popping up. Well, I personally like to have the actions panel open all the time. So I'm going to click on the actions word now and I'm going to move it next to the adjustments, and like this they're going to be 2 neighbors panel, at least for the time of this video. So what do we find in that actions panel? Well, we find what we call action sets, which are pretty much just repository for your actions. That's where you're going to store your actions, and you can use those repository, those action sets as categories. For example, here I have 3 of them. The 2 bottom ones are mine. I've created them, but the top one is the one that came by default with Photoshop. So if you open it, and I actually disabled all of them, and you see it will toggle the state of all the comment in this action set. Yes, here we go. You may be happy because you got a bunch of actions that came for free with your Photoshop CC. Well, you know, calm down, because most of these actions are actually useless, and many of them actually do not work much. Useless, yes, because come on, when do you want to have a neon edge to your picture? Look, I mean, you want to see what it does? Look, you click on the action here and then you press the play button. Look what it does. Doesn't work. The comment hide is not currently available. Okay, I go continue. Oh, the comment glowing edges is not currently available. Continue. So you see that actions didn't work. So I go back in time here using the history panel, and so this one doesn't work. But another one that would be useless even if it worked. Look, how many times did you wake up in the morning and you said to yourself, today I'm going to use Photoshop, I'm going to use the actions, and I'm actually going to use the lizard skin action. Look at this action here. How absurd is that? And it doesn't work as well. So, you know, Adobe, very nice of you to give us stuff for free, but please, could you make sure that it works? So, if you like me, just disable the whole thing. And this is what this little tick box is all about. So, today what we're going to do, we're going to use this image that I've taken of my beautiful daughter Sky that was done last summer in my back garden. I totally love it. That was done with a 70-200, I think. I love the bokeh. I just love the expression and everything. Fantastic, candid shot. So what we're going to do? Well, I want to add a veil to this image, and then I want to add some tint to this image that will be most likely around pink, because we have those beautiful purpley flowers, and because she's a girl, then something pink would actually look pretty nice. So first off, what is a veil? How do you create a veil? Well, and I'm talking about not in Lightroom. In Lightroom, now they added the dehazing tool that you could actually use, move the cursor the other way, and instead of dehazing, you're actually hazing your photo, which basically creates a veil, which is really good. But if you don't have Lightroom, or if you don't want to use that, and if you are in Photoshop, well, there's two ways. There are two ways, as far as I know, to achieve that, is either using what we call a curve adjustment layer or using an exposure adjustment layer, and we are going to use the latter one. So to do that, first off, we need to create an action set. We could use one of my sets, but because this is a tutorial on action, let's create an action set. And I told you it's a repository, so it's not surprised that you can actually click on this little folder icon and it will create a new set. Give it a name. We're going to call it Actions Tutorial. I think that's fair enough. And inside, now we're going to click this little icon on the side that creates a new action, and we've got a new pop-up window here asking us for the name of that action. Well, let's call it Tint. Tint and Veil. I think that's straightforward. The set is already selected. It was done because the action tutorial set was selected in the actions panel. You can even apply a function key to that particular action. So when you click on it, it's only the F keys. I never use it. Why? Because I have a tiny computer. Not a tiny computer, a tiny keyboard. Don't laugh, all right? Size doesn't matter. We know that. It's clear. It's a fact. But on that keyboard, I need to press a combination of keys to access F1 and so on. So I'm not going to do that at all. But if you want to do it, do it. And you could even combine that F key with a Shift or a Command key on the Mac, or a Control key if you speak PC. Finally, we've got a parameter here of color. We can do violet, for example, and hit record. So now it's actually recording, but it's not recording time. You know, when I started many years ago in Photoshop and using actions, I felt under stress. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to speed up. I really thought that the faster I went through the task, the faster the action, the final action would actually execute. But it doesn't work this way. The action only records the task that you take. So you could stay like this for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's not going to record 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take time and think about what we want to do. And because we're going to use an adjustment layer, which I've never covered in a previous episode, I want to talk to you about this adjustment layer first. And I'm going to stop this recording. And you'll see we can start the recording whenever we want. So I'm stopping it. By the way, you notice we chose a color for this action, and yet we don't see any color here. Well, it's to do with the view of the actions panel. If you click on the top right corner here, there's a little icon. When you click on it, you have the button mode. If you click on this, you've got the list of all your actions, and you can see now we can see the purple color here, the violet color. However, I do not use this view because I don't use that much the actions, and I just don't like it. It takes a lot of space, so I'd rather just get back to the normal view. Told you today, an exposure adjustment layer. There are three ways of creating one. You can actually go to the adjustments panel and find the exposure one and click on this icon. You can also go in the layers panel and use this little round icon, disk one here, and select exposure. And finally, the last way of creating it is to go through the menu. So you can do layer, new adjustment layer, and select exposure. When you do this, and only when you go through the menu, you have this little pop-up window opening. You can choose the name. I couldn't care less. I'll click OK. Now we have the exposure adjustment layer. You can know that it's exposure because the name is like this, and you also have the little icon here. And you can see that we have the layer mask here white, meaning that whatever we're going to apply to this is going to apply to the entire document for now. So let's look at the properties that we find for the exposure adjustment layer. So look at the properties panel. We've got pretty standard thing with the adjustment panel. We've got the preset. So you can create presets in Photoshop. You would use the little icon here. You could save the exposure preset, whatever value you set, your exposure, your offset, your gamma correction here, you would save it. And then if you load it, it would actually be in your list of preset. By default, you see we've got minuses, we've got pluses, but we're not going to use that today. Then in terms of the real parameters, what we have is exposure. Pretty self-explanatory. If you move the cursor to the right, you increase the exposure level of everything, the highlights, the shadows, and the midtone. If you go to the left, you actually underexposed your images, and you double click on the word exposure, it goes back to 0. The offset will actually take care of the exposure, but with a priority on the dark tones and the middle tone. So for example, if I go to the right, look, it will increase the middle tone and the dark tone. If I go to the left, it will decrease the dark tone and the middle tone, but will not touch the highlights, or slightly. So you can do this. And the gamma correction, well, it will take care of the middle tones only. So if you actually move to the right, actually this way, it darkens the middle tone. And if you go to the left, it highlights the middle tone. I quite like the picture like this, I must admit. So to create the veil, you could go with the gamma correction, or you could go with the offset. I quite like this, what I'm seeing right now. I was planning on using the offset with you guys, but the gamma correction here works great on this image. Sometimes the middle tones are already very bright in an image and you don't necessarily want to use that one, but here I think we're going to use that. So let's go in the action. Let's get creative. Let's create an action. So to do that, let's go back in time. We can use the history here to go back. So you see, you click at the top and it goes back in time. Let's open the actions panel, click on the tint and veil, and we're going to hit the record button right here. Now we have the red light. The red light, everybody knows, this is the international symbol for silence. This is recording. So what we're going to do now is create the adjustment layer. So we used the layers. Let's use the menu. Sorry, let's use the icon now here, exposure. And let's use the gamma correction as we said. So let's move it back to the left a little bit. I think that's pretty good. I quite like that. But it doesn't, you see, it doesn't do much of a layer, a veil as much as the offset, I find. So let me go back to 0 to 1 on this, and let's use the offset at the end. So you see what it does. The offset really creates a veil on the whole image, and I quite like it this way. So when you look at the actions panel, look at the task that it created. It created a mask adjustment layer task, but you see this little arrow that we have here? Well, if you click on this, you can actually find all the setting for that task here. Here it says offset 0, because we're still within 0, we haven't reached the value 1. So that's why it's 0, but it did record the plus 0.1156, so do not worry about this. So we have created the veil, very good. Now we're going to create the tint. And to do this, we're going to create a new layer. So for the layer, you could use the menu, doing this, and new layer, or you can actually use the icon here. We're going to use the little icon in the layers panel, create a new layer. It's transparent, doesn't do anything for now, but we're going to fill this layer with color. And if you have seen previous episodes, you know how to do this. We go to the edit menu, you go to fill, and now we're going to choose a color. One little piece of advice when you use actions in Photoshop. I would tend to avoid using foreground and background color as much as you can. Why? Because, for example, if you were to select the foreground color right now, the foreground color is black. Let's say we go through the recording of the actions, 2 weeks goes, and in between I've used the foreground and background color, and at a given day, my foreground color turns out to be white. And I want to use the action that I created today when the foreground color was black. Well, when I launch the action, what's going to happen is going to take the foreground color and, hey, surprise, it's actually not black, it's showing white. So to really make sure that you have the color you want, make sure that you force the color selection. And I would recommend using the color picker. So here we're going to use the pink, and here showing the pink simply because I recorded the French version just before this English version of the tutorial. So it has the pink, which I quite like, and I can click OK. Now click OK again, and you'll see the entire document now is pinkish violet. And you may say, well, what we're going to do? Well, we need somehow to actually get the image that is in the underneath layer to get revealed. And that's where we use what we call the blending modes. I've never actually talked about blending modes before, and I'll do a dedicated tutorial on that. So all you need to know is you select the color layer, and here look, we have normal, and that's a drop down list, and it's all the different blending modes that we have. And what you're going to choose here today is the soft light. You choose a soft light, and here you go. Your image is revealed, and you still have this violet pinkish tone to it. On this particular image, what I like to do is to retrieve some of the darks that we have, because look here, if we look at on the side of the shade, it's quite dark, but this tone, this pinkish tone, is overwriting this dark, and I don't find it very natural. So what I would like to do is take this layer and slide it, move it in between the adjustment layer and your initial image, and pay attention to that side on the shade, what's going to happen. You see, now we're retrieving some of our very dark spots in the image, which looks quite natural to me. We could stop here, but if you find that this pinkish color is a bit too strong, you could play with the opacity to reduce it. So let's go to the opacity here, as long as the colored layer is selected, and let's reduce it a little bit. Let's go in the 80s, like this, 82, I think that does well. The last action I often do when I create an action is to actually group all the things that I've created within that action, and that would be the adjustment layer as well as the color layer. So I select the exposure layer, and I'm going to group them. And to group them, I could actually go to layer and do new group, or I could just create the group from there. Either you click on this, or you click on the layer, on the selected layers, and drop it on that folder icon, and it creates the group. And that's basically it. And now we're going to stop our action. I could go as far as saving that image and so on, but it doesn't matter. There's a lot of things that you could do in the actions, but let's keep it simple. So we have our actions, and now there's only one, and now we need to actually play it, to try it, to test it. So we need to go back in time. Earlier we used the history panel to go back in time. Here, one of the reasons as well I like to use group is that I can disable the group if I don't want it, or I can simply put it to the bin, so which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm dumping this, and we basically back to square one, and I can select the tint and veil action and press play to execute that action. And you see, it's very quick, and the effect is right on. And we have our folder, our group, and we have the two layers that we created. Fantastic. So you have created an action if you do this. So you'll notice before we had those checkbox here that enabled us to disable a whole action set, or to disable actions. You could do that, or disable even a task. It works the same way, and that's practical if you want to correct an action. You want to disable some part of the action. You want to correct it, because at any time you could actually start a recording again, and it will record exactly where you selected here. So you can correct things that way. Very practical. Another thing that I'd like to show you is that let's create a new action. Let's we can keep it this way, and let's do a new action like this, and let's call it save, and hit record. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to save that image, and to do that we just do file, save as, and we're going to save it on the desktop. I already had a copy of it. I'm just going to save, replace here, doesn't matter. And image compression zip, because we have layers, we're zipping it, we hit OK, and it's going to record it, to save it on the desktop once it's done. But you notice we had that page popping up, right? So I'm stopping the recording now, and if I play the action again, select save action, and I play it, and you'll notice that we're not having any window popping up. It saves the file automatically where we had done during the recording of the action. But sometimes you may actually want to choose where you want to save, or whether here it's saved, but it could well be another pop-up dialog from Photoshop that you may want to use. Let's imagine you're using a filter like a Gaussian blur, and you want to specify the value for that filter. You want to have that pop-up window. Well, if you really want to have it, here, look, we've got another checkbox, and if you tick it, now I'm going to play that action again, and look what's going to happen. Bingo! I've got the pop-up window, and I can make the changes that I want. So that's what you may want to know. Finally, what I'd like to show you is there's a few things that you could customize, introduce in your actions to make them even more complex. such as here in the icon. If you select an action like this, save, and here if you click on, we saw already the button mode, but there's a few things that you can do. You can duplicate, you can delete, that we've done it with the icons already. You could insert a menu item, insert stop, even conditional, and you can even load actions. If those actions that you create are saved somewhere on your computer, you could even load them. You could share them with your friends and so on. So that's very practical. Sometimes you find tutorials where people give you actions. You can actually load those actions if you want. Well, you could do it from here by doing load action, and you'll notice you see the arborescence here under Photoshop. We've got preset action, and if I had some actions, I could actually load them from here. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show you in terms of the action. Really cool way to create something that is useful, something that you may want to apply to multiple pictures, or something that you come to do quite often. Here, obviously those are just tutorial, but several years ago I did a video on split frequency, which is a process of editing skin in your photograph. And in order to use this process, you need to create different layers with different parameters and so on, and it's quite tedious. And if you're using that method quite often, you may want to create an action just for that, which I've done in the past. So look, I just want to play it for you. I'm going to delete the group one here, so we have a clean slate. I go in my own action set, TMP actions here, and I've created two actions, one split frequency for 8-bit image and one for 16-bit image. This image is in 16-bit. You see it here in the name on the top, and you also have it in image mode, and you can see we are in 16-bit. So if I click on 16-bit now and I play it, you'll notice that it creates a folder, split frequency, and it created two layers, a high frequency and a low frequency one. And now I'm ready to play. So that's why it's quite useful to have actions. So let me know in the comments on the YouTube, on the blog, if you find this video interesting. Give me a thumb. I love thumbs. I love thumbs. It shows me that you care for the work that I do for you. And it also tells everybody else that this video is worth watching. So until next time, we'll go back to that series about watermark, and we'll use what we learned about the actions to create watermarks. And you'll see it will be huge, and we'll combine Photoshop and Lightroom even more than we did before. So good things to look forward to. Until then, this is Tom Migot saying, if you like it, well, capture it. Ciao.